some conversations around is probably transitioning to more of a scripted curriculum under the structured pedagogy models, where curriculums will provide a kind of guidance of how teachers run their classroom from like a day-to-day, time-to-time basis, instead of it just being pointing to what you should do, but more of how you should do it and when you should do it, and then the trainings that are required to make sure that new form of curriculum, which will be structured, are being used by these teachers the way that they should. Um, the issue of overage students and out of school students in our system is a real big thing, and that should fall under one of the pillars under the IRS agenda for education, which is access. We need people to have access to school. So the out of school children and overage children, we realize that in our school system, a lot of our students are overage. We have age range guidance, so you have there's appropriate ages that people should have in certain grades. But you realize now in the school system, most of our schools have children who are above those appropriate ages. So there are things that we can do, which falls on the Mind Bureau as well, especially the accelerated learning programs, to be able to have these people catch up with with other students, and to be able to have programs that will attract students to come back to school. That's one of my major priorities as well. Another one is access, which the minister always talk about, and that mainly focuses on ensuring that girls have access to education as much as their male counterparts, and not just girls, but also disabled people who kind of have been overlooked because there have not been really any program or specialized training for teachers to be able to work with disabled people. And lastly, even though the priorities are many, but for the sake of the time, lastly, one of the major priorities, which is one that I'm going to take very dearly, is monitoring. We can do all these great things, but if we are not monitoring the system, we're not getting anywhere. And the principal monitors for the school system should be the principals at the schools. The principals, I believe, are not empowered enough to be able to have total control over their schools. We're going to empower these principals to make sure that they have total control over the workforce. You'll be surprised to know that most of the counties that we visited and most of the principals that I spoke to, they don't even have the payroll for their respective schools. So they won't even know who should be a teacher in their school. They only see the ones who will come and sign, and then they create a personnel listing from those who they see. But there are other teachers, so many more, who are assigned to those schools, and they are on a general payroll, who have abandoned the classes and they still get paid. Most of them, they get the pay and they give more priorities to the private schools. So if the principals are empowered enough to know the teachers under them and have the mandate from the ministry to be able to control them within their own school system, I think that's something that is going to be great. And we have to monitor that because they are the principal monitors. From the principals are the DEOs, and the DEOs should be working directly under the CEO. So the CEO should have supervision over them. So we're going to have more guidelines on how the CEOs supervise the DEOs and how the DEOs supervise the schools. It doesn't just stop there. It also comes to the level of the ministry and the level of our bureau. One of the things that I admire Minister Jala for saying is that we're not going to be the ministers who are going to just wear these fine suits and sit in the office. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to get out into the communities and see what's going to happen. So personally, in my bureau, I've decided on a plan to go to the office 3 times a week, and 2 times a week we're going to take that for field visits. So with my 5 directors and some of the other office staffs that we have, we're going to make sure we're going out to see these schools, whether it's in Grand Bassa or Maryland or whatever. There are going to be plans so that we can continue what the minister have started, to go out to be able to see some of the things that are happening in the system and how we can put these plans together to help solve them. So generally, those are some of the priorities that I have for this bureau. And I'm hoping with the support of the minister proper and also of the DMI, who is my immediate boss, we will be able to make this move and start to change some things around in our system.
Okay. Minister Kanga, you just returned from the assessment tour to be precise, in Lofa, Bonn, and Magibi counties. Could you give us your own impressions regarding activities and things you saw to the listening audience?
Well, thank you so much. I think my general feeling of this tour is that it was a wonderful learning experience, not just for the not just for me but the entire team. It was a great learning experience. It exposed to us. In fact, we know that. I mean, we all before this tour may have known a lot of the issues that we have in our school system already. But I think what this tour did for us is for us to be able to see the reasons for these various issues that we have. Most of us may have known that teachers are not going to school. We may have known that there are not materials in the school. We may have known that there are challenges for even the CEOs and DOs to be able to get around in this terrain. Look at the type of areas we went in Lofa. So this tour exposed to us the reason for those challenges, and it provided us a heads up to be able to guide our planning on how we will be able to address these things. So before I just go actually into the trip, I'm the type of person who, when I evaluate things, I always like to look for some of the positives that I see in my evaluation, and of course the challenges. The challenges we have in our system may be definitely way more than our positives, but there are some positives that we were able to see on the field. So I'm just going to state some of these positive, and then we can get into the challenges, which might be the cream of the crop of this this conversation. Some of the positive things that we've seen student initiatives in far areas like Kolahun district. At the Kolahun public school, you will be surprised to know that students have taken the initiative to construct an entire cafeteria from their own rate fundraising that they're doing, which is administration has no role to play in it, and the students have themselves decided to carry on these initiatives. I thought that was amazing, because to see students in those far areas of Liberia, most of the time you would just hear them tell you about their challenges, but for themselves to be able to take on activities and to be able to help their schools, I think that was amazing. Um, there was huge commitment and involvement of the communities in some places that we went. In places like Masa Bolahon, when you hear that name, a lot of people don't even know places like that exist. It was my first time going to Masa Bolahon, but the commitment and the reception that we received from the community dwellers. And I told them, myself, most of you guys here are not students, you're not teachers, you're not school administrators, but you are here. That shows how involved you are, and how education has to be something that is all of is everyone's business. So I was impressed with the commitment from community leaders, and especially those who form part of the PTA. Um, another thing that I saw was that we have these school grants that are going out to schools. I seen that some schools have actually made some real good use of these school grants, even though in some other schools is contrary to that. But some schools have really made good use of the school grants. You see that in these rural areas, there are schools that are constructing digital laboratories which are powered by solar. We've seen it in a lot of areas in Lofa and Bong. So those are some of the positive that I've seen. Another one that I've seen, which is probably the last one, there's a construction of these model schools under the ARAS project, and there are two model schools that we visited. The one in Bong County, the contractors there are doing amazing work. They're doing great job there. When you go to that school, you realize this is how schools are supposed to be built, where students will have the space in their classroom. They will have all the facilities they need, and just the view of how that construction is being carried out is an inspiration for any child who will be enrolled in that school. And there's also another model school in Margibi, which we've seen in there, and the same kind of sentiments I feel about the one in Bon County. I also feel about the one in Margibi. So those are some of the positives that I was able to take away from the trip. There may be other ones that I didn't capture. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we've seen. And I'm going to go a little deeper to talk about why these challenges exist, especially from our own assessment on this trip. Of course, the whole country may know that one of the challenges we have in our school system is teacher shortage. And then the most popular discussion, which is the volunteer teachers in the school system. But most of these teacher shortages, like the minister may say sometimes, is self-made. I'm just going to talk about some of the self-made things that we are seeing. Like I spoke about before, none of the principals in any of these areas we visited have ever seen the payroll of their schools. That causes a lot of shortage for teachers because if the principal doesn't know who's supposed to work in that school, he has no way of working on that. So that means there are teachers who are on the government payroll, government pay them every month, and they're sitting down somewhere else and the money is reaching them. Somebody must know about that. It's not just between our teacher, the DOs, the CEOs, somebody at the ministry. Someone must know that these teachers are sitting somewhere, because if the principal brings his personnel list and these teachers are not there because he doesn't know them, I find it hard to believe that there's nobody else in the system who would know. So because of the space these teachers create for abandoning the classes, school administrators are forced to bring in these volunteer teachers, some of which are not qualified, some of which are not committed because they are not being paid. Another reason that I think huge volunteer teacher and the lack of teachers in the classroom is that the mandate of teachers says that you're required to contribute 25 credit hours of work to the classroom every week. But you realize that this is not being distributed by the school administrators. And I think that's the job of the vice principal for instructions in coordination or in collaboration with the principal himself. So you realize that you go to a school that is lower basic, which is from 1st to 6th grade, and you see one teacher who teaches reading in that school. You see another teacher in the same school that teaches vocabulary. You see another teacher in the same school that teaches phonics, and another one who teaches English. And if you calculate the credit hours, for example, the frequency for phonics is 3 times a week, right? And that's 45 minutes sections. So he's given 2 hours and 15 minutes, and on a daily basis. If you calculate that, it doesn't reach. If you calculate that by 5, it doesn't definitely reach his 25 hours. Credit hours. You also see at the secondary levels people with high qualifications, with same master degrees, who are in the system, and they say this guy teaches accounting twice a week. So he's coming to the school for 1 hour 30 minutes, and he leaves. And then the law says that the principals, the school administrators, should be able to give the work that will help teachers to meet those credit hours. So in a school like the first example I gave, why should one person teach phonics? One person, especially in a lower basic school.
Yeah.
So you could have one guy teaching phonics, the same guy teaching vocabulary, the same guy teaching reading, and that still won't even be able to reach his 25 hours. So if school administrators are able to equally distribute, the workload in their schools, they should be able to avoid bringing in volunteers. So because one man is only spending less than 5-6 hours per week, they have to bring volunteers to do the other 20 hours that he has to do. So if I was a school administrator, like I was telling the principals, I will be able to make sure that these guys who are getting paid by government, that they actually do the work that government requires them to do. And then another one for the shortage of teachers in the schools is the extension of schools. Schools elevate to higher levels without the consent of the Ministry of Education. So, for example, you are running a school that's a lower basic. It stops at 6th grade. So they find the need to be able to elevate to upper basic, which is to 9th grade. And when you do that, I mean, most of the time there's no problem with elevating. Sometimes it's necessary, but it has to be done in coordination with the ministry. The reason the ministry has is in the law. The reason the ministry has to know, so that the ministry can know that the gaps you will create in the workforce. Because when you elevate from 6th grade and you reach to 9th grade, of course you will need more teachers. And if the ministry doesn't know that you need more teachers, they're not going to send the teachers there because the ministry doesn't know. So there are schools that were at 6th grade, they went to 9th grade, they're even up to the secondary level 9, the ministry doesn't know about it. So how can the ministry send science teachers over there? How can the ministry send teachers who will run those secondary programs. So we're encouraging schools, especially public schools, to go through the rightful procedure. Work with the DEOs and the CEOs, make sure those information are signed off by the Deputy Minister of Instruction, because that is his job to make sure to sign off the schools elevating. Once we have signed off to it, we know what the gaps are. Then we can be able to say, well, this school was a lower basic, it has gone up to upper basic, so we need certain amount of teachers to add to the workforce. Because the minister doesn't know that, no teacher is going to go there, and then the school administration will be constrained to bring in these volunteers, not even looking at their credentials. They just call it, these guys came to help us. And I continue to quote the minister, and the Deputy Minister for Instruction always said, the matter of teaching is not to just help.
Yeah.
You can't get up and take someone and say, oh, because we don't have a lot of nurses, I'm just bringing this person in to help.
Then you're kidding. Then you will be kidding.
Exactly. Same thing with the legal. You can't say, oh, because there's not enough lawyers, we'll find another guy to come represent someone in court and help. People have to be qualified, have the right credentials to work in various sectors, of life. Education is no exception, right? If you're going to be a teacher, you have to be a qualified teacher. You have to be a licensed teacher, which is one thing that the EDU Education Delivery Unit and with and also with the Center of Accreditation is working on, to ensure our teachers are licensed, so that we don't just take anybody and put them in the system, and the administrator will come and tell me, say, the man came to help us. The man then just can't help us because he's not qualified. We don't want to help. That's not going to be good. If you're going to come and help us, you should be qualified, you should be licensed, and then we try to see how we can absorb you onto the payroll because you have the qualifications that we need.
Okay, Minister, let's come to this one. When are you beginning the new academic calendar planning? What time are you starting, and what are your committee members comprised of?
Thank you so much. The academic calendar is a major role of the Bureau of Basic and Secondary Education, and this academic calendar has a timeline that has to be ready before school starts and distributed to not just public schools, but private schools and other educational stakeholders. I have been reviewing the current academic calendar, and I have made some notes to myself, but we're constituting a committee actually today, which is going to comprise of a lot of people, because we need the input of everyone. It's going to comprise of people at the level of the ministry, some educational stakeholders, and some of the major partners that we work with, so that we can have.
Example, are you bringing PTA? Are you bringing Principal Association?
So at the level of the ministry, we are going to bring in a representative from each of the bureaus.
Example,
the Bureau of Student Personnel.
Okay.
So I will be happy if the minister there could be represented, or if not, of course, they would designate someone. We have 5 different bureaus.
Yeah.
So we have the Bureau of Basic and Secondary Personnel, Student Personnel. We have the Bureau of Early Childhood Education. We have TVET, which is also going to be represented. And then we have Teachers Education. So everybody in those bureaus, each of those bureaus will be represented, so that they can all have their inputs, because the calendar is intended to give information to the
so besides those bureaus, is there any other division that you will want them to be a form part of your
definitely
calendar committee?
Yeah, I was going to get that. So besides those bureaus, we're definitely going to bring in the Bureau of Communication, or as you know, represented by Mr. Bleaton, and he's going to be on that, because the calendar is a PR kind of a thing. So running this calendar without the representation of the PR person, I don't think is kind of feasible. So we need the input from PR. We also need people from curriculum who are going to come, and then people from the EDU to guide us, and of course the different excellence committees that we have, at the ministry.
Okay.
And I'm also listing some other educational stakeholders. You mentioned the PTA,
the Principal Association.
Exactly. You mentioned other partners who are assisting the ministry with
educational partners.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are people who are going to be
that
work actually starts today.
Okay.
There are a lot of relevant.
From there, you're going to be forming your committee.
Yeah. From here, we're going to. Well, we already listed we already formed the committee at my level.
Okay.
So I'm going to spread that information out today with some memos to let people know who are on the committee. Okay. On the committee.
So let's go to the next one quickly because we have other program today. People want to know what are some of the new things you will be bringing on board in this academic calendar. It shouldn't be a surprise. Could you just inform the public or school administrators about that? Is there any new thing in your mind that you think you can add onto this academic calendar to make it more suitable and, of course, to standardize it?
Yeah, and before I just talk about the new things, let me just talk about some of the things that probably you won't see in the academic calendar this year.
Mm-hmm.
There are some, let's say, management stuff at the level of the schools. Like, for example, what do you do when a teacher is late? You're not going to see that in the academic calendar this year because you see that in the code of conduct.
Yeah.
The people should know, administrators should already have that. What happened when a student is late?
Okay.
When he comes to school, you're not going to see that in the academic calendar this year because those are already in student code of conduct and other areas. So things that I believe are not too relevant to the academic calendar, that are information that are already out there that schools have, you're not going to see them. Some of the new things you will see, we're going to emphasize a lot on the school operational permit regulations.
Okay.
We realize that the education counties are 16. We have 15 counties in Liberia, but we have 16 educational counties because Maserado is broken up into 2. Out of the 16 educational counties, we realize when it comes to school operational permits, 13 of those counties, you're not going to find one school that has a permit in their schools. They may pay for them, but they don't have the permit themselves. So if you go to the school,
they only show you receipt.
They only show you a receipt, or they show you what they call letter of attestation from the CEOs, which is not under our regulations. There's no such thing as a letter of attestation under our regulations. So we're going to make sure that this calendar has the relevant information, the direct information that especially private schools need to make sure that they are actually going through their permit registrations the right way. We're going to have information from all these different bureaus, which is things that we're going to talk about in the committees, because there are some information that they have that should reach the schools and they're going to share.
So how many days are you going to take to formulate or to rearrange?
Yeah,
we 2 months before the opening, because they have to be distributed throughout the Republic of Liberia before the reopening of schools in September.
By the end of June, we're going to be done with the academic calendar.
So that 2 months.
So we're going to do.
You started on the 1st of May.
We start on the 1st of May and the end of third week in June. Third week in June. That's what my plan says.
When will you validate? When will you verify?
That's what we're saying. So we have set a deadline for first week in August. So that for final work.
Okay.
So from the end of our own committee work, which should end in third week in June, from there till the first week in August, we're going to do validation. We're going to do printing. We're going to do everything to make sure that it reaches the schools and stakeholders before schools.
So what can you say in this public manner to the school administrators or our partners regarding the distribution of the academic calendar for 2023-2024?
Yeah, the distribution, the printing, those are areas that we would definitely need partners collaboration. We are going to reach out to a lot of partners who are also going to be on this committee to ask them to help us with printing of these materials. The ministry can do some, but of course, where we depend a lot on partners. And let me say this in this public manner, that our partners have been one of the major driving force for educational delivery in this country. So we'll go depend on our partners to help us print out, because I want every single school and every single stakeholder on our education to have a copy of this calendar, right? So to do that, we need thousands of copies. So we're going to help partners.
Because a lot of new things you're going to put in this calendar.
Exactly.
And I think those new things will go for almost 6 years, because you'll just be doing adjustment over the
year. We'll just review
and just do adjustment, amendment to the academic calendar.
Yeah.
So this is very cardinal for people to really, have this, because you are bringing some brand new ideas. You are infusing some things in the academic calendar that will go for almost the next 6 years, right?
Yeah, we hope so. But in education, new things pop up almost every single day.
Okay.
So monitoring tells you what are the new things that are popping up. So we're going to catalog those new things that are coming up and see how we can enshrine them in the calendar as the year goes on. But the basic things will definitely remain, like you said.
Okay. Now let's look at your message as basic and secondary education minister of the Ministry of Education. What message have you for our secondary and basic education school system in Liberia? Most of them are not going by the policy, are not going by the regulation, are not going by the guidelines. What's the message to the basic and secondary schools from first grade all the way to 12th grade in the Republic of Liberia? You've been the basic and secondary education at the Ministry of Education.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to start first with our schools, the public schools. In Liberia, this is an open secret that the public schools are a mess, quote unquote. Well, that is a word that anger means a lot, and it kind of
Very good.
it angers me a lot, and it kind of promotes it inspires me as well, because we've heard this from not just onlookers, but we've heard it from educational stakeholders, from people in the ministry, and even the president have said this. Not our current president, but presidents have said that this is a mess. This should be something that we're angry about. When we hear this, it should boil our blood. It should drive the kind of work that we want to do. So I'm asking every school administrator who has come into our sector, who is getting paid by the ministry or not, to have that passion, to have that will, to take this as a challenge to yourself. I tell my colleagues at the ministry, I said this: education is a mess thing. After 6 years, if we're still hearing it, we need to walk with our heads down in Liberia. I will be one person who will walk with my head down if after our 6 years we still hear education is a mess. So I'm asking everybody who are stakeholders to take this very seriously, to exhibit your highest level of integrity, to exhibit your highest level of excellence. And if you don't have passion for this field, just gladly walk away, because there's a lot of people who have passion, who are onlookers. So we can bring in some of these onlookers, help them build their capacity so that they can help us to be able to develop these schools. If you are a teacher who is sitting down somewhere receiving money from the Ministry of Education and not going to do your responsibility, we're going to find you, and we're going to make sure you leave the system. And I know, knowing the minister that I work with, she's going to make sure that you account for the money that you've been eating for those years without going to the classroom. So the message of integrity and excellence and the will to do well is what I want to share with the public schools. The private schools, the same message. But I also want to tell them that if you're going to help us, because the Ministry of Education has the responsibility to deliver education in the entire country, so we regulate private schools as well. I appreciate private schools because they are helping us with this mandate and the responsibility that we have. But if you're going to help us, it's not just to say, "Oh, I'll go help the man." No, you have to help us with keeping in mind the ministry's priority. Your help, quote unquote help, has to be in line with the priorities of the ministry. The schools that just wake up, build a building, and say, "I have a school here," you're not helping us, because the ministry need to know what you have in your school. You got to meet all the requirements to get a permit. And once you meet the requirement, which means we have information for your school at the level of the ministry, then we can see how we can work with you to help you improve where you need it, where the improvement is needed. And you can help us to give us some of the ideas that you're using in the private sector to improve your school. So I'm just asking everyone generally, it's time to put all hands on deck. It's time to look at this education is a mess thing and get angry about it, and take on the challenge to make sure that we are able to make some strides within the next 6 years and maintain those strides until our students are students of excellence that can represent us in any part of the world.
All right, Mr. Kanga, thank you so much. At this time, we want to open the line, and I will be leaving in the hands of Shannon Go. We will be taking the call, and later on, you will respond to that. We'll have to take about 4 callers. Then you will climax. Then, of course, you will leave. I have another program at the SKD ministerial complex. So on behalf of this senior management team of the Ministry of Education, my name is J. Maxim Deaton, leaving you this day. We will now allow you to call in, and of course the minister will respond to your callers and your calls and response to it accordingly later on. 0770 60041, or you call 0886 40 9458 is the number. Until then, Shannon Go will take leave with Okay. So want to say thank you so much, Baba.
So let me say thank you to you too, Maxine, before you leave. And lastly, let me just say your energy inspires me a lot. Keep it up, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, caller, your name, where you joining us from?
Okay, good morning. My name is Andrew Sadie, and I called you this morning from Sino County. And the minister having to be my good friend, brother, in person of Honolulu. Abakanga. And I listened to him well this morning, speaking on a lot of issues relating to our educational sector. And I also want to appreciate him saying that in the next 6 years to come, our educational sector will not be a mess. So he spoke about coordinator in the various counties. I want to know as to whether we have some, apart from the DOs, whether we have coordinators in the southeast, like Sino, Maryland, and other part of the counties that he's speaking about. Because apart from the DO that I know, I don't know as to whether we have other coordinators that is helping the DOs to coordinate the process when it comes to the educational process in the rural area. Like Sino, Maryland, Grand River, River G, and other areas also in the southeast.
Okay, thank you, caller. Minister, while we're waiting for another caller, you can respond to that.
Oh yeah, I think that's a very good question. Under the organogram of the ministry and under the Bureau of Basic and Secondary Education, we have the minister, we have the directors, and under the directors, we have what we call regional coordinators. But I was shocked to know that these regional coordinators currently sit at the Ministry of Education, which I don't think make much sense to me. So one of the things that I didn't mention that we're going to try to do is to ensure that these regional coordinators are actually in the regions and doing what they're supposed to do. So yeah, as per your question, there are coordinators that should be in those regions, not specific in the counties, because the regions are divided into three. Liberia is divided into three regions in terms of education. So these coordinators should actually be in those regions, in my knowledge. And part of the thing we're going to do is to make sure these coordinators actually are in the region. But it also has a lot to do with funding and making sure, they have the logistics that they need to do their work. So that's something that we're definitely going to work on to make sure these coordinators are actually in the regions that they should be in.
Okay, so Minister, we are not receiving the caller anymore, and because that we on the line we don't have any caller, so you can give all your final words.
Thank you. I think we've said it all, but I just want us all to keep the message and continue to kind of remember what the minister have said, that our work should be led by integrity and driven by excellence. I take that as huge commitment, and I'm going to make sure that everybody that I supervise, they take that also. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your listening role, and we want to appreciate the minister for attending this program. Have a nice day.